Forgive me for the harm I've caused this world. None may atone for my actions but me. I really am sorry, okay? I'm sorry.
No paraphrasing. Again.
After spending many hours in the break room and reciting the compunction statement over 1,000 times, 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐸's atonement is finally accepted, and she's allowed to go back to her office. Completely fatigued, she makes her way to MDR, where she is met by Dylan and Mark, who are at a loss for words. While taking a rest in the lunchroom, 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 reveals that she heard a mysterious male voice behind the scenes in the break room, while Dylan states that he sometimes hears a crying baby noise when he's in there. Mark interrupts them, saying that employees aren't supposed to talk about the break room. He continues by saying that's why they have specific protocols, to prevent employees from getting punished. This causes 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 to become disgruntled by Mark's bossy attitude. Knowing that Irving was excited about the arrival of the new handbook totes, Bert brings a few of them to the MDR staff. This gesture causes Irving to grow even more fond of Bert. Not wanting to impose, Bert leaves MDR after being sincerely thanked by Irving for his thoughtfulness. Not long after, Irving decides to visit O&D, as Bert has invited him to visit at any time. Excited by Irving's visit, Bert starts showing him several paintings, including one of Irving's favorites. While admiring the painting, Bert touches Irving's hand. At first, Irving seems to like it. However, he then feels startled and abruptly departs, leaving Bert unsure if he did something wrong. In MDR, Mark sits at his desk, unable to resist staring at PD's map. When 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 approaches, he quickly hides it in his drawer. Once again, he smugly talks to her in a bossy tone. By this point, 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 is repulsed by his obnoxious and uncompassionate demeanor. As soon as Mark leaves his desk, she opens his drawer to see what he was hiding. Upon his return, he finds her holding the map. Mark admits to the group that he believes PD left him the map. Dylan points out that he should have turned it in, as maps are considered contraband. 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 then calls Mark a hypocrite for breaking the rules while telling her to follow them all day long. She continues by shaming him for being loyal to Lumon instead of his best friend. Defending himself, Mark claims that everything was going perfectly fine before 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 arrived, and that the MDR staff was like a family. 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 retorts that she would rather die than be part of his family. The heated argument ends with Mark shredding the map in frustration. While walking back to MDR, Irving passes by Seth's empty desk and notices that he has left Rickon's book unattended. Irving brings Mark to see the book so they can decide what to do with it. Despite Rickon's face being on the cover, Mark's 𝐒𝐤𝐸 is unable to recognize it. Mark decides to take a quick peek inside the book. On the first page, he discovers a handwritten message signed by Rickon, dedicating this copy to him. Irving suspects that Lumon might be conducting a loyalty test to see how their employee would react. As a result, Mark announces that he is going to turn the book over to Seth. In MDR, 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 continues to think of ways to escape. She cleverly decides to remove the paper cutter from the office printer and rushes to Harmony's office, threatening to cut off her fingers if she isn't allowed to send a video message to her Audi. Seeing no alternative, Harmony is forced to comply with 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸's demands. Moments later, 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 records a message for her Audi, urging her to resign from her job at Lumon. Afterward, 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 takes the CD of the recording and confidently enters the elevator. Expecting this to be her last moment at Lumon, she tells Mark to go to hell before pressing the elevator button. Seemingly an instant later, 𝐒𝐤𝐸's 𝐒𝐤𝐸 awakens inside the elevator once again with a different CD in her hand. Disappointed, she is accompanied by the team who play the video for her. In it, 𝐒𝐤𝐸's Audi says that she won't resign, and that her 𝐒𝐤𝐸 must accept the reality that the Audi is the one in control. The Audi then warns her 𝐒𝐤𝐸 that if she harms their body in any way, she will make her regret it by forcing her to come to Lumon every day to suffer the consequences of her actions. On the weekend, Mark's Audi and Mrs. Selvig go to PD's funeral. The service begins with a heartwarming video of PD and his beloved daughter, June, singing and playing the guitar together. While the crowd is focused on the video, Mrs. Selvig slips away to the back to find PD's coffin. From her handbag, she retrieves a small drill and carefully makes a hole in Petey's skull, allowing her to delicately pull out the severance implant. A few days later at Lumon, Harmony instructs the diagnostics team to test Petey's implant to confirm whether it's been adjusted for reintegration into normal society. As Irving walks through the hallways, he runs into Bert, and they bond over their mutual appreciation for art, as usual. During their conversation, Bert apologizes for touching Irving's hand during his visit to O&D, but Irving assures him that there's no need for an apology, as he enjoyed it. Eventually, the two share a heartfelt handshake and part ways. However, wanting to spend more time with Bert, Irving immediately returns to O&D, where he discovers that the team has many more members than Bert had mentioned, leaving him feeling somewhat deceived. Instead of turning in Rickon's book, Mark's 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐲 and begins reading it in secret. The motivational self-improvement book deeply resonates with Mark, especially since it's the first work of literature he has ever read besides 𝐤𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐲's handbook. Instructed by Harmony, Miss Casey invites Mark for a wellness session, during which she hands him a ball of clay and instructs him to sculpt something that conveys his feelings. As Miss Casey quietly watches from across the room, Mark molds the clay into the shape of a large tree, reminiscent of the one that his wife crashed into, causing her death. This conveys to Harmony, who's watching through a hidden camera, that the emotional connection Mark's Audi has to the tree that killed his wife still somehow lives within the innie's mind. Back at MDR, Dylan is hard at work when Helly approaches him with a smile, telling him that she finished her work for the day. As she leaves the office, she stealthily takes an electrical cord with her. On her way to the elevator, she also picks up a trash can from the hallways. While pulling the trash can behind her, Helly enters the elevator. She quickly opens up the elevator's hatch and ties the electrical cord to it, fashioning a makeshift noose. With a determined look on her face, she steps onto the trash can, and in one swift motion, kicks the can over, leaving her body hanging limply.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Yeah? Seems like you're getting the hang of stuff here. Cool.